Good afternoon and welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Manning. Jennifer is Senior Research Librarian at the Congressional Research Service at the Library of Congress. And she's also the chair of our SILS Alumni for Inclusion and Diversity Committee. Thank you for being with us, Jennifer. And let's start with could you briefly describe the kind of work you do at CRS?
Sure. I am an embedded research librarian. I work in our government and finance division of the Congressional Research Service. So I mainly am working with attorneys and policy analysts. We are the part of the Library of Congress that provides research support for all of the members of Congress and the Vice President. So the rest of the Library of Congress functions as our national library, and CRS kind of functions as what other countries call a parliamentary research service. And I mainly cover legislative procedure and congressional office operations, which can include everything from impeachments to insurrections to vetoes to how you run your congressional office.
Terrific. Thank you. How has technology sort of affected the kind of work that takes place at CRS, especially the knowledge-intensive work?
In my long career, there's been, of course, a huge change. And when I started out, there was an actual typewriter on my desk. But especially over the last couple of years, we've really been able to do great work with digitizing a lot of kind of the gray literature that a lot of our analysts and librarians and attorneys have produced over the years. And we've been able to do a lot of building of internal websites that have kind of allowed us to do a lot more collaboration across divisions and to share a lot of documents, which has made work during COVID so much easier since we've been home. And we've also just been able to work on developing a lot of online learning for congressional staff, because we teach congressional staff, and that's always been something we weren't doing a lot of, but we really needed to, because about a third of congressional staff are actually out working in offices in the states rather than here on Capitol Hill. Then that includes, lots of interns, and those people weren't getting much training from us, and now they can.
Great, thank you. So how has COVID impacted, work practice?
That was a big change for us, because we had very limited telework. People mainly worked from home one day at most. We've always put a lot of stress on the importance of being on Capitol Hill and being there physically with our congressional clients and being able to go over, if necessary, to a member's office and brief them very quickly. And so it was a big shift for all of us to suddenly go home. And it also, there were some challenges to get over with confidentiality issues, because everything we do for our congressional clients is confidential. So we had to, our tech people had to work really hard to kind of build a network that kind of accommodated all of our needs in terms of confidentiality and kind of what sort of networking tools we could use that would kind of meet our also national security standards and confidentiality. So like, as I said, we've kind of been so grateful that we spent a lot of time in the last couple of years digitizing an enormous amount of materials. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot of our kind of tech librarians and data librarians have been doing that, because since we just weren't able to go into the building, also because of the January 6th insurrection has also kind of kept us home longer. than in other cases. Having those online materials really has made a huge difference.
Well, I can only imagine. Um, Finally, let's turn to SIL students, and what kind of advice would you give young folks today who are coming out of our programs? How do they prepare themselves to work in this world of changing technology and expectations?
Well, one thing that I've always told myself since leaving SILS, that no matter what kind of job you're going to do, you're going to have to communicate with other people, and you're probably going to be teaching and presenting in some way. And I think everyone needs to kind of keep that in mind. And people communicate in different ways. And so I think it's good to kind of find your strength and decide whether, you're the person who's going to be good at doing the extemporaneous, talking in a big meeting, or you're someone who would rather have us together a slideshow, or you'd rather teach people live in person, or you'd rather teach people in a webinar, you'd rather show your face, show you're not. But I think it's something that everyone has to do in your job. You're just going to have to make you're going to have to make presentations, whether you like it or not. So kind of get comfortable with what you're good at and what you're not. And then the other thing, I think during this pandemic, unfortunately, I think people are having to kind of work a little harder to connect. I know that we talk about, we have these new hires and lots of people haven't really met them because we are all dispersed. And, we've had interns, including from library schools, that have been just virtual. And that's something we never did before in CRS. And a lot of that was for kind of security and confidentiality reasons. So we had to pivot to that. And frankly, it's harder to remember the intern that was virtual from last summer rather than the intern who was in person and you went out for coffee and talked to people. So I think the students need to maybe work a little harder at kind of continue to keep in touch with the people that you worked with in past jobs and internships, and kind of remind them that you're still around and you're out there, because I'm finding it's harder to remember the people that I've interacted with just virtually.
Yeah, those are great observations and really good advice for our students. Jennifer, thank you so much, and stay well. And I'll look forward to seeing you here in Chapel Hill sometime soon.
Great, thank you.